Five touchdowns for the second week in a row. Brock Purdy has a 5-touchdown game. That is absolutely incredible, and it's something that Steve Young has never done. It's something that Joe Montana has never done. In fact, no quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers has ever accomplished that. Well, when you think about the rich history of the franchise, that is truly a remarkable feat. Back-to-back games with 5 touchdowns for Brock Purdy. And yeah, this game was a shootout, and I've seen shootouts before, but this one was an absolute track meet from start to finish. So, folks, there are a lot of plays we've got to look at. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into the film. All right, hold on to your hats. Here we go. It is the infamous first play of the game. We see Jauan Jennings stick his foot into the ground. He gives the defender a move to the outside before coming back to the inside. And ordinarily, this is where I would say the defender knows that Jauan Jennings is a good receiver. He has to respect that move to the outside, and that is what will open up Jauan Jennings to the inside. And we see Brock Purdy winding up to throw this football. That is what he's expecting as well. But Jalen Johnson doesn't bite on the outside move at all. Instead, he jumps the route to the inside. Now, what's he doing here? Is he guessing? You know, if Jauan Jennings had just continued to the outside, he could have burned Johnson for a 75-yard touchdown right off the bat here. Well, this isn't a guess. This comes from a lot of film study and preparation by the Chicago Bears. They knew that San Francisco was likely to open up with a route like this, and they were prepared for it. Kyle Shanahan said after the game, Brock Purdy made the right decision, knew where to go with the football. It was the right read, but sometimes you just have to tip your cap to the opponent. In this case, it's the ball that's tipped up and intercepted by TJ Edwards, returned for a touchdown on the first play of the game. Oh my goodness. Now, the one thing I will say about the San Francisco 49ers is this is a team that only knows one way to play the game. Here we see the 38-year-old big man, Trent Williams, hustling to try to run down this pick six. Are you kidding me? Absolute, shout out to the effort here from Trent Williams. Unfortunately, he would pull his hamstring on this play and would have to leave the game. So this was a significant play. They spot the Bears 7 points right off the bat and lose Trent Williams for at least this game at the same time on the first play of the game. Unbelievable. Well, if you fall off a horse, you've got to get right back on. So how does San Francisco do it? They start out by putting Demarcus Robinson in motion, and a man goes with him. And this will reveal man coverage. The Bears are going to defend this play man to man. So who then is going to cover Christian McCaffrey? Well, ordinarily, you might want to have a linebacker do that. The only issue with that strategy is Christian McCaffrey is one of the best running backs in the NFL, and he is really good at these choice routes where you can run to one side or the other. Oftentimes, he can just run away from the slower linebacker. So here the Bears have a plan. They've dropped the safety down. They're going to double team Christian McCaffrey on this play to take away any kind of a route like that. However, now you're leaving another area of the field vulnerable. You've moved the safety down, opening up the middle, and Jake Tonges takes the space the defense left behind. And turn your attention to the pocket. We see Brock Purdy is already winding up to throw this football. Absolutely no fear cutting this thing loose after what happened on the first play of the game. I love it. And from this angle, we get a great look at the route of Christian McCaffrey, the reaction from the defense, and how it opens up the middle for Jake Tonges. As the drive continues, the 49ers would face a key 3rd down and 2. So Chicago lines up with a 5-man front. But this time San Francisco has a plan. They're going to use Demarcus Robinson to block the defensive end, opening up the hole for Christian McCaffrey. But the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Demarcus Robinson badly misses his block. The defense reacts aggressively to the run, and that's unfortunate for the Bears because this isn't a running play. It's a fake. Now, Brock Purdy does feel he needs to buy some time here. He does have a couple of good options. Juwan Jennings is open. When the safety rotates over, though, that leaves absolutely nobody left to cover Demarcus Robinson on the post. The best thing that can happen on an offensive play in the game of football, and the worst thing that can happen to a defense. This is going to be a touchdown. However, Purdy doesn't quite have time to set his feet here, so the ball hangs a little bit to the inside. But Demarcus Robinson is so wide open it doesn't matter, and ultimately he's down at the 1 yard line. I'm definitely not here to criticize Brock Purdy after this incredible game he just had. He does feel the rush of Joe Choyanchoenka, but Colton McKivitz does a good job of forcing him to take the long way around. We do see Brock Purdy step up into the pocket, but then he moves to his right for some reason. I think if he just steps up and lets this thing fly down the middle of the field, it's a touchdown to Demarcus Robinson. But either way, no harm, no foul. The 49ers get the ball at the 1 yard line. And here is where I would usually say something like the 49ers punch it in from the 1, and then we can all move on with the video. But I think this play does merit further breakdown. The 49ers line up with a fullback, a running back, and 3 tight ends in the formation. This definitely looks like a running play, and Chicago sells out to stop the run, leaving absolutely nobody to cover Jake Tonges. Wrongfully denied a touchdown last week. This time justice is served. Jake Tonges gets a touchdown, and the 49ers quickly tie this game up at 7 apiece. And check it out, we have a Braden Willis sighting. With George Kittle's injury, Willis was elevated from the practice squad. A reminder that the folks on your practice squad are in every way a part of the team, and they can contribute even in big games like this. Now, after this, the teams would exchange a few punts. You know, the 49ers punt for the first time in the month of December, if you can believe that. And the defense forced back-to-back 3-and-outs from the Bears. You know, it's interesting. Looking at this film, the defense maybe wasn't as bad as it may have looked during the game. However, at this point, the defense would leave the chat for a while. Ultimately, the 49ers would get the ball back, and they start this drive by handing it off to Christian McCaffrey, makes a cut, makes another cut, gets to the edge, outruns the defender, and before you know it, he has broken off a 41-yard gain. The entire offensive line moves to their left, the defense reacts, and this opens up the cutback lane for CMC. Interestingly here, after getting burned on a couple of fake handoffs earlier in the game, the defensive backs for the Bears all backpedal on this play. Well, we've talked many times on this channel about how all of Kyle Shanahan's plays start to build off one another, and this game is a tremendous example of that. Here, San Francisco puts Kyle Juszczyk in motion. The defense shifts, but this time the offensive line flows to their right. And now, these linebackers aren't quite sure what to do. They hesitate. And when you hesitate, you become a spectator. Shanahan keeps it up, this time lining up with 2 tight ends, one of whom was actually Kyle Juszczyk, lined up in the tight end position, and a running back. Now, what should Chicago do here? They don't want to second guess themselves too much, so they continue to just match up against the personnel that the 49ers are presenting. They line up with a 5-man front, and this front reacts aggressively to a run fake, and in addition to that, these 2 defenders also commit themselves to defending the run. Now, it sure looks as if Jake Tonges was asked to block the entire way here. I think the design of the play is to get the ball quickly to Kyle Juszczyk with the blocker out in front, but one defender who did not get sucked in on the run fake was TJ Edwards. He takes this throw to Kyle Juszczyk away, so Brock Purdy buys time. The run fakes for San Francisco were so effective in this game, and that definitely includes this play. In fact, there's only 3, maybe 4 defenders on this side of the field because everybody else was sucked in trying to defend. that run. And Brock Purdy sees he's got a man blocking out in front of him and just decides to take this thing himself. Touchdown 49ers, and San Francisco, after a wild start to this game, takes the lead 14-7. Now look, when I was growing up, I remember it was Joe Montana and John Elway having these incredible duels. Later on, it was guys like Steve Young and Brett Favre. Some of you older fans may remember, Terry Bradshaw and Roger Staubach, for example. Maybe even a few of you out there hearkening back to the Bart Starr and Johnny Unitas days. But I can't help but wonder if we are seeing the next generation of young gunslingers, because this contest between Brock Purdy and Caleb Williams was incredible. And here, Caleb Williams uncorks a beautiful pass to put the Bears right back into a tie game with the 49ers. Wow, they answered back in a hurry. Back on the defensive side of the ball, though, Chicago is still trying to figure out how they are going to defend the future Hall of Famer Christian McCaffrey. So here they line up with one safety back deep, a 5-man front, and we see an aggressive response from the linebacking core. And this is going to leave Ricky Pearsall one-on-one down the field, and here he puts on a tremendous double move that breaks the ankles of Nashawn Wright. Whew. And I gotta say, I earned a lot of respect for Ricky Pearsall in this game. He's been struggling with injury all season long. We know he's sore. We know he's hurting. He could have very easily gone out of bounds here without any contact. Instead, he cuts back to the inside and takes a hit just to gain a few extra yards on the play. That is what football is all about. John Madden used to say that these guys are warriors and that they're gladiators, and I buy into that 100%. We also see a few more wrinkles here of this run fake game that the 49ers have been running. For one thing, the pass protection from San Francisco has been really good, but the 49er coaching staff has been assisting with that. Brock Purdy, after faking the handoff, rolls out to the other side, giving himself a little bit of extra time to uncork this deep pass. All right. We're in the second quarter now, so the teams have switched sides, but this is still the same drive. And Chicago, I think kind of sensibly here, continues to try to figure out what to do on defense. They put two safeties back deep this time and only line up with a 4-man front. This does still look like a bit of a run formation for San Francisco, and it's just interesting to me. Watch closely. Brock Purdy never turns around to fake this handoff to Christian McCaffrey. There's no run fake here, but the linebackers still can't help themselves. They all take at least one step forward, and Ricky Pearsall is able to find a hole in the zone. One little thing of note in this game was the wind. Take a look at these flags absolutely whipping around. And believe it or not, this seemed to have zero impact on the two stellar quarterbacks in this game, Brock Purdy and Caleb Williams. And here Chicago does something that I think is actually a bit clever. They leave one safety back deep, but we've been seeing Brock Purdy roll out with the football after faking the handoff, so they commit another defender not to stop the run, but to play the quarterback here. But just to illustrate how difficult it is to defend the San Francisco offense, this time the 49ers hand the ball off, and when the offensive line moves to their left, the linebackers shift, again opening up the cutback lane for Christian McCaffrey. CMC one-on-one against the safety in the open field, forget it. The 49ers cap off the drive with a play we haven't seen yet in this game, the toss. And the defense actually reacts pretty good to this, but they still have to commit a couple of defenders to defend against any potential pass plays that might come out of this formation. So San Francisco is able to get enough of a blocking game going downfield that it's an easy path to the end zone for Christian McCaffrey. It's already been an incredible back and forth game, but San Francisco takes the lead again, 21-14. Now, I did see some complaining about the officiating in this game. I, for one, actually thought it was pretty good for most of the game, but I do think that they missed one pretty badly here. We do see the 49ers have jumped offsides, but we're going to roll it forward just a few frames. I want you to watch the guard here. We're going to go forward a few frames, and you can see he moves, right? So the defense goes offside. The offensive line reacts before the snap of the football. Okay, this play by rule should have been blown dead. You can see guys kind of standing around, but the officials let it proceed as a free play, and it results in a long touchdown for the Bears. Now, look, I'm not saying that had they called that correctly, the 49ers would have subsequently stopped the Bears on that drive. We all know that this game was an absolute shootout, but they might have, right? And this was a big game, and that's a call you kind of got to get right. There's no use crying over spilled milk, so the 49ers have to get right back to work because the score is once again tied now as a result, and here they're facing a big 4th down and 3. Now, the 49ers do a few things to give themselves an advantage on this play. They put Jake Tonges in motion, and a man goes with him, revealing man coverage. And then they do it again. They put Ricky Pearsall in motion, and Deshaun Wright goes with him. So this confirms that they are going to be covering our best receiver man-to-man. Brock Purdy looks that way the entire time. He knows right where he's going with the football. Mano-y-mano, put your best guy on our best receiver and may the best man win. And the result is a 1st down for the 49ers. The 49ers would inch their way down to the goal line, and the reason I say inch their way down is because the Bears started selling out to stop the run again, and Kyle Shanahan noticed this. What I found was interesting is that the radio analyst for the 49ers, Tim Ryan, noticed it as well.
He had every guy slanting in that direction to stop Christian McCaffrey. Might be time for a keeper here shortly.
Well, on the next play, Kyle Shanahan indeed calls the keeper. The defensive end sells out to stop the run. He totally focuses on Christian McCaffrey, so Brock Purdy keeps the football himself and runs it in for a touchdown. Yeah, the 49ers have a great football mind in the booth there calling the games for the radio, and also want to acknowledge the tremendous job Guy Haberman has been doing filling in for Greg Papa. We hope Greg Papa gets well soon, but good stuff happening down there in the radio booth for the San Francisco 49ers, and San Francisco takes the lead on that play, 28-21. Since we're handing out flowers, we might as well give John Lynch some props as well. We know that the 49ers have been banged up, especially on the defensive side of the football. So in the middle of the season, he traded for Keon White, and White really abused the center for Chicago in this game. Here he absolutely smokes him. And look, the 49ers did not get home for a sack in this game, but they did have an impact. Here they force an incompletion. So San Francisco comes up with another stop on defense. Again, when you look back on this game, you don't remember it, but that was a big stop because the Bears get the football to start the second half. One more thing worth noting is that Caleb Williams was able to evade that rush. I don't know if Sam Darnold has that same athleticism. Next week, some of those pass rushes might get home for the 49ers. So look, ultimately, I think that was a pretty good first half of football for the San Francisco 49ers. It may have felt a little chaotic at times, and I did warn you that this was going to be an insane game. But even after spotting the Bears 7 points right off the bat, the 49ers lead at the half. And it's because they scored 4 touchdowns in that first half. The last time they did that was in 2022, Brock Purdy's debut game against Tom Brady. And I'm glad you're here watching it with me. We are picking up a lot of new viewers this year. So if you like what you see, hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe. If you want to see more of it, you can hit the notification bell to be alerted whenever a new video of mine goes live. And if you really want to take a deep dive into this stuff, folks, we have a Patreon page. There will be a link in the description. I would love to see you guys over there. All right, without further ado, let's get right back into the film and head into the third quarter. All right, remember, Chicago gets the ball to start the second half, but here they are facing a 3rd down and 14. Now look, one thing you guys can always count on with me is to be honest with you guys, and to be totally frank, D. Winters did not have a good game. Here he is looking in the backfield. He never carries the receiver through the zone. It almost looks as if he thinks he's supposed to be spying on Caleb Williams on this play. Now, for those of you who don't know, a spy is simply when you have a defender kind of mirror the quarterback's movements. It works great against mobile quarterbacks. In the Super Bowl, Kansas City put a spy on Brock Purdy, and at points in this game, the 49ers would have D. Winters spy on Caleb Williams. I don't know if he was supposed to do that on this play because he lets Jahdae Walker go right by him and come wide open on 3rd down and 14. Chicago would punch it in, tying the game up again, this time at 28 apiece in the third quarter. But the 49er offense simply goes right back to work. They have been red hot over these last few games, whether it's Phillip Rivers or Caleb Williams or even Cam Ward trying to get something going on the offensive side of the football. Anytime they do, Brock Purdy just says, "Hold my beer." On the defensive side of the football, Dennis Allen has the Bears go back into a single high safety look. The 49ers again fake the handoff to Christian McCaffrey. The defense reacts, and before you know it, Kendrick Bourne has gotten behind the defense. He's one-on-one with the safety. When the 49ers send Sky Moore deep, the corner goes with him, and Bourne is simply able to run away from the safety to open space. Brock Purdy had time to get these chunk passes away. If, you have forgotten, Trent Williams was injured on the first play of the game, but Anthony Pleasance filled in admirably for him. How was he able to do that? Well, Trent Williams has been getting a veteran day off every Wednesday in practice for the 49ers. He still practices on Thursday and Friday, but Pleasance comes in on Wednesdays, so he's been getting a lot of experience during the week. So he was ready to come right into this game. In addition to that, the 49ers, again, did things to help him out. Here they have Christian McCaffrey come over and just kind of graze the defensive end there. Again, just helping Pleasance out, giving Brock Purdy time to throw this football. It's good coaching, good scheme, and good execution by the players. The 49er offense is just hitting on all cylinders right now. They are not missing a beat, even when a key player goes down. Now, having said that, I do expect the Seattle Seahawks to test Pleasance a lot more than Chicago did in this game. The 49ers have played extremely well on offense in this game, but it's getting late in the third quarter. Can you deliver in the clutch? Well, here we have reached what is undoubtedly one of Brock Purdy's most spectacular plays in his young career. The 49ers go back to the run fake, but this time Kyle Juszczyk stops in his tracks and heads in the other direction. Brock Purdy rolls out to that side, and he starts to go through his progressions, and this reminded me a lot of back in the 90s when Steve Young used to say he would go through his progressions looking first to the touchdown and then to the check down. Brock Purdy makes his first read to Jauan Jennings, sees a couple of defenders there, so he comes off of it and over to Ricky Pearsall. He's completely covered, and now Brock Purdy is going to have to buy some time. Shanahan said after the game that they didn't really get the coverage they wanted from the Bears defense on this play, and he was just hoping that Brock Purdy would throw this football away. But this is the moment in the game when Brock Purdy is able to do something magical, and we're just going to all enjoy it together here. Purdy makes a man miss, makes a second man miss, stays behind the line of scrimmage, and then gets the football to Kyle Juszczyk for a touchdown. Oh my goodness, are you kidding me? Is this guy for real?
Perfect. Outstanding.
The Bears would respond. Facing a huge 4th down and 5, their coach Ben Johnson recognizes that they are not in a field goal game. He knows what kind of game they're in. They're in a shootout. They need touchdowns. So here he comes up with a play that's a little bit Shanahan-esque in a way. He takes both of his tight ends and splits them out as if they're wide receivers. He gets these bigger, stronger tight ends against smaller defensive backs. And at first glance, it looks as if Colston Loveland is going to clear the way for Cole Kmet underneath. But as Kmet continues running towards the middle, it's Kmet that draws the defense away from Colston Loveland. A nice play. All right, this is the same drive, but we have entered the 4th quarter. And earlier we praised Christian McCaffrey for making the safety miss pretty badly on a play, but sometimes that sword cuts both ways. DeAndre Swift takes it into the end zone for a touchdown, and Chicago has tied this thing up at 35 points apiece. Wow. The Bears are feeling it. They put everybody up at the line of scrimmage, but they back out. But sometimes when you back out like that, it's harder to get back into position, and Ricky Pearsall ends up one-on-one, and Brock Purdy gets him the football. It's a great play, but eventually the 49ers would be facing a 4th down and 7. And boy, Kyle Shanahan makes the decision to punt. Well, this is hard to justify. Both offenses are red hot. It's unlikely that either defense is going to be able to stop the other. And independent of all of that, analytics agrees that this is the time to go for it. Even conservative models say go for it here. But Kyle Shanahan makes the decision to punt back to the Bears. Well, can the defense come up with a set of stops here? Upton Stout had to leave the game with a concussion, meaning Chase Lucas would have to enter the game. And here Robert Saleh does something very crafty. He simply sends Lucas on the corner blitz. I love this play call. Jair Brown will drop down and pick up his man, which he does. But here we see a rare mistake from Diamador Lenore. He also goes with the inside man. There's nobody on Luther Burden, who just had a huge game for the Bears. San Francisco would follow this up with another mistake when D. Winters bites hard on the run fake, completely turning loose Colston Loveland, and the Bears are marching right down the field with time winding down in the 4th quarter. Now, one thing I am going to say about these kinds of mistakes is I actually think it's kind of a good sign, because these kinds of things with D. Winters and Diamador Lenore, those are mistakes that can be corrected. In addition to that, they still have Robert Saleh, who makes a great call here. It's 3rd and goal, so he only rushes with 4. He puts 7 defenders in the end zone. Caleb Williams has nowhere to go with the football. He has to take the check down and almost throws a pick 6 to Malik Mustafa. The 49er defense bent, but they did not break. And with just 5 minutes and 22 seconds left, Cairo Santos knocks it through, making the score Chicago 38, San Francisco 35. Chicago, knowing the 49ers are in a passing situation, leaves two safeties back deep, but here Kyle Shanahan comes up with the brilliant play call of the tight end screen to Jake Tonges. And he drops it. Now, I thought this was a really cool moment in the game. Here, these two very young, very hungry teams in the middle of a heated game with playoff seeding on the line. We see some great sportsmanship by the Chicago Bears here. So, how do you keep this drive going if you're Kyle Shanahan? They go back to their bread and butter. The fake handoff to McCaffrey, the offensive line moving in one direction with Brock Purdy rolling out to the other side and the receivers going deep. But here Kyle has saved a play we haven't seen yet. It's the final wrinkle to this run attack they've used all game long. It's the screen to Christian McCaffrey this time. There was nothing wrong with the concept of the screen, so Kyle Shanahan goes back to it, and it's a huge gain for the 49ers. And here we see one more absolutely brilliant play from Brock Purdy. Jake Tonges led the team in receptions in this game, and here Brock Purdy stares at him the whole way. The Bears triple team Tonges, and just to show you guys that I'm not bluffing you here, take a look at the helmet stripe of Brock Purdy. He's looking right at him, and Brock Purdy throws a no-look pass to Juwan Jennings. And it's a strike. Jennings 15-10. Ricky Pearsall coming in with the block. Touchdown 49ers. San Francisco takes the lead 42-38. 25-yard strike through the air on the no-look pass. Are you kidding me? The score happens with just 2 minutes and 15 seconds left in the game, and it was here that all of America was wondering, did the 49ers leave too much time for Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears? Chicago would be facing a 4th down and 5, and here we see D. Winters up at the line of scrimmage. He's not going to blitz. He's just simulating pressure. He's going to drop back, but like we talked about before, it can be hard to drop back accurately. We can actually see Winters is getting a little bit lost here, and he leaves Colston Loveland open for a 1st down. Now he gets tackled inbounds, so Chicago calls their last timeout with just 26 seconds left. And there's the tendency in football sometimes to forget about the play before the play. I'm talking about things like Marshawn Lynch getting tackled at the 1-yard line, the play before Russell Wilson throws the interception at the goal line against the Patriots. Well, this to me is the play before the play here in San Francisco. But before we look at it, let's go back to 1 year ago, almost to the day, when the Detroit Lions came into Levi Stadium and kind of had their way with the 49ers. And here they run the hook and ladder. Take a look. Now, Ben Johnson was the offensive coordinator for that game for the Lions. He is now the head coach for the Bears. Robert Saleh was not the defensive coordinator in that game, but he did his homework. He went back and looked at the plays Ben Johnson called in that game, and he had the team prepared in this game. Let's check it out. There it is, the hook and ladder, but Diamador Lenore is in great position here. He makes a great tackle, a touchdown-saving tackle. That means the Bears go down inbounds. They have no timeouts. Tim Ryan was screaming on the radio, lay on him, don't let him up. And I'm screaming, no, don't do that. If the defense lays on him, that will be a delay of game on the defense, which would mean the clock stops and half the distance to the goal. Chicago could probably just punch it in, maybe even with a tush push for the win. Instead, Caleb Williams has to get up and spike the ball to stop the clock with just 4 seconds left. Wow. Chicago Bears are going to have one shot to try to get this thing into the end zone with just 4 seconds left, and it's here that Robert Saleh makes his final brilliant play call of the game. The 49ers, again, knowing that the Bears need to go to the end zone, they're down 4 points here. They stick 8 players in the end zone. They leave a spy on Caleb Williams. That means San Francisco only rushes with 2. Somehow, despite only rushing 2 players, Chicago turns Bryce Huff loose. Caleb Williams is able to evade that, but then Yetur Gross-Matos comes up to pressure Caleb Williams. That is the right move. You must pressure the quarterback in this situation, and I've seen a lot of people make a lot of this, that DJ Moore was wide open on the play, and to be frank, I don't think this is realistic at all. Remember, the field is 55 yards wide. This is at minimum a 40-yard throw here, and with Gross-Matos right in Caleb Williams' face, there's no way he has time to stop and set his feet. Anybody saying otherwise is just a screenshot warrior that I don't think is living in reality here, and the proof is in the pudding. We see a receiver that's closer than DJ Moore, and Caleb Williams falling backwards just can't quite get enough on it to get him the football. The pass falls incomplete. 49ers win the game. It took Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, Brock Purdy, and the entire team to win this game, and the 49ers will have the right to play at Levi's for the #1 seed and home field advantage throughout the Super Bowl. And look at that. The players were just exhausted after one of the greatest NFL games you will ever see. Wow, what an incredible finish to an incredible game. You know, just a few weeks ago, we were talking about the Seahawks and the Rams being probably the game of the year. This one might have just barely edged that out. An unbelievable contest. And I got to be honest with you guys, Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears did not lose that game. They simply ran out of time. Huge respect to the Chicago Bears. To me, it is no accident that they have 11 wins and are the #2 seed in the NFC. Clearly, the 49ers and the Bears, 2 of the best teams in the NFL, and I would not be surprised to see San Francisco and Chicago meet again in the postseason. Well, what about the San Francisco 49ers? This performance by Brock Purdy is unbelievable when you consider the fact that the 49ers essentially spotted the Bears 7 points right off the bat, that Trent Williams left the game, that Brock Purdy had no George Kittle, that Ricky Pearsall was banged up and he was throwing to guys like Sky Moore and Kendrick Bourne. This was an unbelievable quarterback performance. 5 touchdowns for the second week in a row. Unbelievable. Wow. Well, folks, if you have taken the time to sign up for the Patreon page, I can't thank you enough. Your support allows me to take the time to do these videos right, to give you the quality that you deserve. You humble me and you honor me. Thank you so much. From the bottom of my heart, I truly mean it. Thank you. All right, where do the 49ers go from here? Well, there's only one more game left in the season, and yeah, it is for all the marbles at home against the Seattle Seahawks for the #1 seed, home field advantage throughout the playoffs and the Super Bowl, including a first-round bye, NFC West Division Championship, all the things that come along with it. And look, I don't want to, injure myself, patting myself on the back here, but, who predicted this? Who told you guys that this was a realistic possibility? Well, some people are saying, that nobody was ever considering this. Take a listen to this clip here.
Now, the Niners, they control their destiny. If they win next week, Herm, they would be the #1 seed in the NFC. And I felt like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, we weren't even considering them for that possibility.
You're absolutely right.
How did they turn?
Well, somebody was considering it. Look, I know it's probably too early to be talking about something like this, and in 5 weeks, maybe this statement will be silly. But I am going to say, this is going to blow your mind a little bit. If LA and Green Bay each lose one more game and the 49ers win out, San Francisco would be the #1 seed in the NFC, if you can believe that. So the 49ers have a realistic opportunity here to A, win the division championship, and B, possibly even get a top seed in the NFC. Well, there it is. Okay, so saying it and putting it into practice are two very different things. The truth is, that was a lot of dominoes that had to fall in the right order, but they all did. Everything just seems to be aligning for the San Francisco 49ers in the middle of this magical storybook season, and it all comes down to this one last game at the end of the season against their arch rivals, the Seattle Seahawks. I wouldn't have it any other way. This is how it should be, and this is how it should be settled on the field between these two teams. Wow. And just think about the matchup between these two teams. You've got the number 1 and number 2 special teams units in the league. First of all, you have the 49ers red hot offense going against one of the best defenses in the NFL. Seattle has a crushing defense. So it's going to be the irresistible force against the immovable object, in an absolutely incredible matchup between two teams that know each other well and played a very close contest in week 1 that came down to a game-winning touchdown pass in the final minute. So, it's no surprise to me that this game is predicted to be close, and I wouldn't be surprised if it comes down to a field goal. How exciting is this going to be? Absolutely unbelievable Saturday night game. Okay, so now there's some implications that come along with that. We talk a lot on this channel about sort of weird quirks of scheduling that do have an impact on NFL teams. For instance, if a team plays back-to-back night games, they usually lose the second of those 2 night games statistically for whatever reason. Well, the Bears and the 49ers had both played back-to-back night games, so that was kind of an equalizer, right? The 49ers are going to be playing their 3rd night game in a row, and Seattle is not. So that's interesting to me. However, Seattle is going to be the road team on a short week. I never like taking the road team on a short week in the NFL. For San Francisco, this is back-to-back short weeks. But the Niners are kind of used to this, right? In the last few seasons, they've kind of gotten the short end of the stick with scheduling. This year they didn't. They got a lot of extra rest this year, but at the end here, they are faced with this scenario, but they've been through it before, and the team just seems totally relaxed and confident and ready to take on this challenge. So, I don't know what's going to happen in the game, but we're going to be here to break down the film, and I will see you guys then.